What's up, guys? It's the Essential John L. Crossfire.
And I am Nova Lee.
And you guys are tuned into Caught
in Conversation.
Shaka laka laka. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 162 of Caught in Conversation. Is your refrigerator running? I am the Essential John L. Crossfire, riding solo, at least for the intro and outro portion. Unfortunately, Nova Lee, very under the weather today, just started her pre-op diet, so she's just not feeling the best, so she went to bed early. I myself am not feeling the best. I did this entire conversation that you're about to hear with Pogo the Clown with a tissue up both of my nostrils the entire time. So if I sound a little bit nasally, that's why. I do apologize. The conversation went just under about an hour and a half, so try not to be too long-winded in this intro and then the outro, but only one sneeze squeezed through that entire time, and unfortunately there was in a spot where I couldn't really edit it out, but I think there was one time where I blew my nose while Pogo was talking, and the mic may or may not have picked it up, so if it did pick it up, I am really sorry to you guys, the listeners, and more importantly, I am sorry to Pogo. I was listening to what he was saying. There's been lots of thunderstorms and stuff, and all the pollen's just, it's fucked my shit up. It's completely rocked me, and then obviously we just had our flu shots a couple of days ago as well, so that's kind of, you get that post-flu shot, you kind of get like a mini flu. It makes sense. So that combined with the thunderstorms and all the pollen and stuff it's rocking my shit. Plus I did like my first proper workout in about 4 years today. It was a very light workout, but it was still a workout nonetheless. So I did all of that while struggling to breathe through the flu. So I'm still kind of proud of myself. But yeah, a bit under the weather here. I think I just sniffled into the mic. So I'm really sorry. The song of the week this week. What a terrible way to segue into it. But this is me. I'm riding solo. It's what you get. The song of the week this week is Circus by Halocene. Obviously a cover of a Britney Spears song. But this is an absolute banger of a cover. I really enjoyed this cover. You would have seen that was my little hint when I did the Who's This Wrestler? I used that song kind of as like a little hint. And in my mind going into it, it was going to be the song of the week unless something else came up, which it didn't. The match of the week is Matt Cardona versus Trevor Murdoch at NWA Power Season 7, Episode 11. In this conversation with Pogo the Clown, we talk a lot about territory wrestling and old school wrestling and how modern day NWA still does a great job of blending, the current version of pro wrestling with the old school wrestling. So I thought this match was a great example of that. Again, that match is Matt Cardona versus Trevor Murdoch. I almost said Matt Murdoch. Matt Cardona versus Trevor Murdoch. NWA Power Season 7, Episode 11. This match is uploaded in its entirety as a separate video on YouTube as well, so it's very easy for you guys to find. But yeah, on this conversation with Pogo, we talk territories, as I obviously just mentioned. We talk, his inspiration to being Pogo the Clown, his time training in the US with Dr. Tom Pritchard and Ricky Morton, which comes up in this conversation as well, and Gabe Sapolsky and Aaron Stevens, and just the whole thing was bigger than I even realized. So it was a really fun conversation for me to learn as I was talking to Pogo. So hopefully you guys learn a thing or two from Pogo as well. And then we kind of, towards the end, we go on tangents about TV clowns and Looney Tunes. And I learned that the Acme versus Wile E. Coyote movie is still happening through Pogo the Clown, who's a massive film buff. So they say you learn something new every day. So for me, that's what it was. Yeah, who knows? Let me know when you guys listen to this episode. Obviously, this is going out in a few days' time, but when you guys listen to this episode, let me know the day that you listen to it, what new information you've learned on that particular day. But yeah, I can't do this without shouting out Two's Company, who we talked to 2 weeks ago by the time this episode comes out. Obviously, it was their episode where Pogo came up and UPW came up, and I was like, man, I've been following UPW for a bit, and Pogo's one of the guys that stands out, and I'd really like to talk to him, and we manifested, and now here it is and happening. So I'm going to put their link for their fighting against cancer in the description as well, and obviously go back and listen to their conversation if you haven't already. Liam and Lani, Lani and Liam, salty and spicy, spicy and salty. Say it which order you want. I don't I don't know which they prefer, to be honest, but Toosy Company, they're amazing Twitch couple that do amazing things with their platform. And Nova and I were hoping to meet them at PAX in early October. Unfortunately, we didn't have the funds to do it. And now it worked out very well because, doing somewhat of a professional segue, much better than the Song and Match of the Week, on that same weekend, October 11th, the Emma Butler Memorial Show. I know I do all the plugs in the outro, but this one I will be hammering home. I've said it in the last few episodes. I'm going to say it in the next few. Has been pushed forward about 3 weeks. It has been pushed forward to October 11th in Cowra Uniting Church, raising money for the Emma Butler Tongue Cancer Charity. I am very excited to be there. I have a handful of Radiation Kick t-shirts still available. $30 each, $10 for each shirt goes to the Tongue Cancer Charity. You can pre-purchase them to pick up at the show. Alternatively, I can post them to you for an extra $10 for 1 to 2 shirts. Obviously, if it's more than that, we can, work it out. But $30 each, $10 for each shirt goes to the Emma Butler Memorial Charity, or Emma Butler Tongue Cancer Show, I should say. The 2 Emma Butler Memorial shows that we've had, both in 2022 and then last year in 2024, has raised just over $4,000 just from the shows alone, and that's not including the other money that's been raised outside of the shows. And we have saved lives with the money that's raised, with the scopes that have been able to donate, including in the local area of the Central West where the show is happening. I cannot stress that enough. But it's also Bathurst 1000 weekend. Main races on the Sunday. Bathurst and Cowra are pretty close together. You can come over for the wrestling on the Saturday, stay the night, shoot through Sunday morning, see the V8 supercars. I'm just saying, if I had the funds and if I had a license, that's what I'd be doing. But no, I'm very excited for the show, very looking forward to that show. But yeah, October 11th, I'll try not to harp on it too much when I do get to the outro, but because I feel like I've spent too long talking about it already. But Nova Lee's not here. I have boogers and snot and everything falling out of my nose, so I'm going to do my best to do an introduction here for this man. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press this button and I'm going to try. I'm sorry, Pogo. All I can do is try. Ladies and gentlemen, step right up, making his court and conversation debut all the way from sunny Queensland, representing United Pro Wrestling, trainee alumni of the JPWA Academy. I just realized the A stands for Academy. So nice, you gotta say it twice. It's Pogo the Clown. Ladies and gentlemen, I am here riding solo this week for this episode, but we have a very exciting guest. So I can't even think of the word right now. We threw it out into the universe, and we kind of this came to be on the podcast basically a couple of episodes ago, where I threw it out saying, hey, I really want to get manifested. That's the word. I was like, I really want to get Pogo the Clown on this podcast. And now only 2 episodes later, I have Pogo Clown on the podcast. So how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing good, thank you. And yeah, it's one of those things where like you just kind of have to try it, see what happens, because you don't know what's going to happen until you try it. So I'm glad you did reach out, because I love doing podcasts and love talking about like wrestling and all that stuff. So it kind of just came to be pretty much.
And like, I don't want to sound like a massive mark, but one of the the taglines for this show is "For the Marks, by the Marks." When I reached out to you and you said that you'd actually listened to this show before, I had a bit of a moment, a mark out moment, and I was like, hell yeah, it's working.
Yeah.
So I appreciate,
cool.
One, I appreciate you listening, but 2, I do appreciate you definitely coming on to the show this evening. And if you've listened to the show before, I'm assuming you know what I'm going to ask you first. We always ask the same question for guests the first time they're on the show, and I say the first time because hopefully there will be a next time eventually. But just to kind of break the ice here, Pogo the Clown, what was your earliest professional wrestling memory?
So it's we'll probably get into a bit more as we talk about like how I got into wrestling and everything. But the earliest like memory I have of professional wrestling was I was at my grandparents' house, and I was like probably 4 or 5 years old. And at my family at the time, we didn't have anything like Foxtel or anything like that, so I had no idea what wrestling sort of even was. Like, I kind of had tertiary knowledge of it. Like, I kind of got who Hulk Hogan was because I've seen him and I've seen him around. But I didn't really know like that's what wrestling was or what even wrestling was to begin with. But we're at my grandparents' house. My dad's just like flicking through channels, and he stops on this one thing and watches a little bit. I found out like later in life that he actually used to watch wrestling. So hindsight, this makes sense. But I can't remember like anything exactly what happened. But I just remember that it was a dude, which from my memory, I'm gonna say it's Triple H. Gets attacked by Hornswoggle from underneath the ring, and at this point, being like a 4 or 5 year old and having no idea what anything is going on, I just from then on assumed that there was going to be a small man dressed as a leprechaun ready to attack me at any point from anything that was like a low covered table. So I actually took a little bit that night to go to sleep because I was convinced that there was going to be a small leprechaun underneath my bed coming out to attack me.
I feel like I've just aged myself here because you saying you're only 4 or 5 years old seeing Hornswoggle makes me feel old as fuck. But a few years previously to that, when the Boogeyman was first on the scene, I had the same thing. I was like, I think 9 years old when the Boogeyman debuted. And even then, like, there was the segment where the walls were bleeding or something, like, randomly. It was, like, Simon Dean or someone. And I remember just being, like, in the bathroom, just, like, terrified that the walls were just going to start bleeding and, the lights were going to go red like some sort of horror film. So, being terrified of Hornswoggle seems plausible.
I might be, like, mixing up the times and all that. Could have been a rerun, could have been anything. I just very distinctly remember that, like, dude jumped out of the ring, landed on the floor, and then all of a sudden Hornswoggle came out and started attacking his feet. And I'm like, what the hell is this? I'm too scared to watch any more of this.
Oh, I love that so much. At what point did you discover that wrestling outside of the WWE existed?
So this is a very, I guess you'd say, unorthodox sort of story of how someone gets into wrestling. Like, I saw that and didn't see anything else about wrestling. I just saw the Hornswoggle thing. Grew up, didn't know anything about it. Like, I kind of got who John Cena was, kind of understood the Randy Orton RKO. Pretty much anything that sort of dilutes from the wrestling world into, like, general public is what I understood. And it wasn't actually until it would have been at this point, like, around the end of year 2017. Okay. If I'm getting that correct, like it's been a fair amount of time in wrestling, so my dates might be a little bit off. But I got WWE 2K16 as like a free game for my birthday, and even when I got it, I was like, yeah, it's wrestling. It doesn't really interest me. I don't really care for it, but I like to play games. It's a free game, and I'll give it a shot. And pretty much from there, because that was the one that had the Stone Cold Showcase on it. Like, I downloaded it, started playing the showcase. I distinctly remember the opening little sprawl of the "This is Showcase" and having a shot of the ring. And because this is all my knowledge of wrestling at the time, is just this WWE 2K16 game. For at least 4 months after that, I thought the ring was called the Showcase. So I came into it like knowing absolutely nothing about wrestling. I got that 2K16 game. I loved it. It still is one of my favorite games, favorite memories. But pretty much I played that all night, and then at like 4 a.m, we had to drive down to Newcastle, my whole family, and slept on the car ride down there, woke up, and just started Googling absolutely everything I could about wrestling from there.
That's amazing. I was kind of the same much earlier on. I had the Nintendo 64 games and the PlayStation 1 games and stuff like that, but really the SmackDown Here Comes the Pain game and then like the SmackDown versus Raw franchise was what drove me, because like I knew of it through like friends and cousins and stuff, but me playing the video games was where I got like my knowledge from, basically. So that's kind of cool. I like that we're in that generation that can share that kind of feeling regardless of which game it is. It's the same experience regardless. That's really cool. And
like it wasn't long after, like it was only about 6 months after I played that did I like actually start training, because like once I had it, I was like absolutely hooked. Like I was pulling up like the Wikipedia definitions of every hold and move and like everything I could find. Like if it was wrestling related, I was trying to watch it or read about it or anything like that.
With that being said, segueing into that, Pogo the Clown, what was the deciding factor that got you to kind of take that step into training, and when, like, or was there a specific moment or anything that made you want to do that?
I don't think there was like a specific moment. I think it was kind of like if I had to pick what it would have been like when I had a birthday, like my actual birthday party. The next day was, I think it was the Evolution pay-per-view, like the very first one, the all women's one.
Yep.
And I was like, look, at this point, like, all I'd really heard from my parents is sort of them like joking about how like wrestling kind of sucks sort of thing. So I kind of felt very hesitant to be like, hey, for my birthday, can you buy me the WWE Network for 1 month so I can watch, this pay-per-view live? And knowing full well that it's literally just going to be me watching it. Because like, even though my dad was like a fan growing up, he told me he didn't really like, he wasn't super into it. That's why I never had like any sort of like, I didn't even have anyone on like outside my family that knew wrestling, so it was kind of like completely foreign to me. But I watched that Evolution pay-per-view, and then I watched this one sits in my mind a lot, the Hell in a Cell. I think it was the same year. I distinctly remember it because it had Sasha Banks and Charlotte Flair in the cell, and they messed up taking Sasha out on the stretcher and got like the cable wrapped around it. And that was, weirdly enough, that was kind of the moment between those two pay-per-views where I was like, you know what, like looks really awesome. Like this is something I want to do. And at the time, the only sort of like sports I did was roller derby, which is, if you go back into the history of either of those two, like they're very hand in hand, especially in like the 70s and the 80s. So I felt between the Hell in a Cell show, event, the Evolution event, and having roller derby already sort of there, it felt like a natural sort of bridge to go from roller derby to wrestling, because it was still in my mind, like a similar sort of mindset of having performance plus athleticism, because that's what got me into it, is that like you've got all these big characters like Stone Cold, Triple H, Shawn Michaels, like anyone from the Attitude Era, anyone from the 80s, like all these big characters that seem larger than life doing crazy athletic stuff and having it work perfectly, pretty much.
So this is where I wish Nova was here on this episode, because she loves roller derby. We actually talked about roller derby when we had Freya Fury on, because she used to do it. Did you have a name when you were doing roller derby, just as a side note?
Yeah. So quick little sidebar into roller derby history. My roller derby name was MPAL, and if you ask, I'm sure to this day there probably aren't many other people that were around when I was doing it, because I did it in like junior roller derby. But not to sort of like sound full of myself, but between myself and my mom, who was at the time running like insurances and stuff, like doing a lot of the admin stuff for some roller derby companies, like insurance wise, I actually went from not wanting to do roller derby to just being like, you know what, my mom's making me do it, I may as well enjoy it, to then becoming like one of the most well-known junior skaters in Australia by the time I finished. We had done like 2 junior roller derby nationals. I was the captain of both of the team that won both years. I was like, they basically wrote the book on training off me. And it sounds very like full of myself to say all that, but like if you know anyone in roller derby that's been around for at least like 7 years or a little bit longer than that, they would probably say like, yeah, I've heard of MPAL. Like he used to like come here a lot. He'd do all this kind of stuff. And that's why I felt like having that performance side and persona, because I sort of took the route with roller derby to be like, you know, I want to have fun doing this. I'm going to wear crazy outfits and be a bit more of a showman than everyone else, because I had the skating skills to do a little bit extra. And that sort of transitioned naturally to me being like, you know what, I'm going to now be a showman in a different sort of environment.
That's cool as hell, and like I just like when people bring stuff up like that. I'm like, yeah, cool. That's fucking awesome, man. Like, and you're right. Like the physicality between the both is, although very different sports on the surface, you can see that there is a lot of similarities when it comes to that type of stuff with the physicality and the performance and stuff. So that's really cool. Like, it makes sense now why you're such a, trying to think of the word, like such a larger than life character in the wrestling business, because you've been able to kind of harness that and carry it over. That's really cool. But you saying that like you didn't really weren't really a big wrestling fan per se, like until very close to you starting to train, boggles my mind given the names of people that you have trained with, which obviously we'll get into. But who did you originally start training with once you kind of did decide to take that step?
So I made a lot of research. I did a lot of research on the local stuff around me, because at the time, like, I was living on the Sunshine Coast and a bit more inland, so I was kind of far away from everything. So I wanted to, if I was going to commit to it, I wanted to make sure it was going to be right for me. And at the time, the only places that like had training schools or some form of that around me was the AWA, which is now defunct and sort of been absorbed by Pro Wrestling League, or UPW. And because UPW was just a little bit closer, I made the decision to start training there. And I still remember, like, I wasn't a part of the very, very first, like, tryout. The first one wasn't really a tryout, it was more just, like, bringing guys in. But the one I went to was more of an official tryout, so that was the first one that they, like, advertised that I saw. It was ironically, like, I went to one of their UPW events in the early years. I think it was, like, the second one ever, as it is now as a company on the Sunshine Coast, and I saw it live. I'm like, yeah, like this is what feels, pardon me, this is what feels right for me. It's close by. It feels like what I want to do with wrestling. It has a lot of the same ideas and all that. And they had the flyers there, so I was like, you know what, done. Like that's how you do it. And pretty much since then, I've been training with UPW since like I started training. So it's been consistent from there.
So following on from that, like how do you take the steps to then training with, and I've said on this podcast, granted I've never met the man, but in my opinion, arguably the greatest wrestling trainer of all time. How did you take that step to training with Dr. Tom? Because for someone that wasn't interested in the business to then go on to train with such a huge trainer, that's even more commendable than it already was for me. That's crazy.
Yeah. So, well, I mean, first off, like I don't do anything by halves. Like if I'm going to do something, I want to do it to the best I possibly can and get the best out of it. That's why I did a lot of research on where I wanted to train initially, because I wanted to make sure it's going to be the best for me. And the same thing with that. Like even though I didn't like have a sort of like, I don't want to say like pedigree, but I didn't have anything linking me to wrestling, had no friends, family or anything like that had their own memories of it. I kind of had to make my own. So I made that by researching everything I could about wrestling. So like terms of holds, what kind of holds there are, match types, different types of wrestling, and like everything I possibly could. And that actually led me to finding the Jim Cornette podcast, which, you know, he may be a bit of a like polarizing figure, but I believe that he is probably one of the best minds you could possibly find in wrestling, of how he, not just like how it works, but having that link to the 70s and 80s when things were like at its peak, and being like someone that wants to do the absolute best and most I can in any sort of venture. I got very drawn into that era of the territories of, this is when guys were making the most money. They were always traveling. They were basically, even though they were like local stars or in some cases national stars, they were at the top of their game. And it wasn't until, I believe it was either, it must have been 2019 when I first saw the ad for the JPWA on Facebook. And I thought, okay, this sounds like what I want to do, because I was originally tossing up of going to OVW, because that was the two places, because one of the trainers that have had a hand in sort of my development was from there, is Muhammad Ali Fayez, and he was there at that era when like Jim Cornette was there, when Dr. Tom Pritchard was there, when it was the WWE developmental. So he had that knowledge as well that he very thankfully passed on to a lot of the guys at UPW. And he really pushed me to go to the OVW because that's where he trained. However, like we had some other guys go there and they didn't, one of them did put like a good, what's the word? Was a good representation, and the other one kind of wasn't. So I wanted to branch out and go somewhere else and sort of make my own representation, not go in there with people already thinking like, oh, you know, here's this Australian dude. The last guy we had here was kind of a bit shit. You know, one guy was good, the other guy was shit. What are you going to be, kind of thing? And I actually decided in 2019 when I saw that ad, like, yeah, you know what, JPWA, I'm going there next year for sure. And then, of course, being 2020, the whole world shut down. And pretty much from there, I kept putting on myself that, like, I have to go next year. Like, it's going to get to some point where I'm just going to miss out. So I have to sort of do it. And it wasn't until, like 2 years ago now, at the end of the year, I was like, you know what? Like, doesn't matter what it takes. Doesn't matter what I'd have to do, how much time I have to spend working, how much money I have to save. Like, I'm going to the JPWA. I'm going to Tennessee. That's going to happen no matter what.
So that's just amazing commitment. And I'm going to sound like a crack record on this episode. I sound like a crack record on most episodes, but the amount of dedication that it takes to, one, save the money to get over there, but then to actually go over there and do it is a journey in its own right. And I it's kind of a cliche kind of question, but I feel like it needs to be asked, especially for you coming in still very fresh in a lot of ways. What were the biggest challenges for you training with JPWA? Because like that school as a whole has pumped out so many great people in the last, 5 or so years. It's insane the amount of talent, especially overseas, that have come out of it, but just in general, like.
Yeah, I was so lucky to be there at a great time because I'm sure we'll go more into it, but I had opportunities with the local territory promotions in the NWA. I had opportunities to train to work at Ricky Morton's School of Morton. I didn't get a chance to go to the Net Pro and the Innovate sort of places, which you had Crazy Steve on here, and he's one of the head trainers of one of them. I believe it's Net Pro. Maybe
yes,
I'm forgetting, but there was a lot of places around there that I'm like, man, I want to go here, I want to go there, and in 3 months it's very hard to get everywhere, especially training 5 nights a week. So that's why I was like, you know what, if I don't make it this time, I'll make it next time. And Net Pro was one of the places I did want to get to, but I never got to because of the beautiful Bobby Eaton Arena. That place would have been a really great venue to work at, personally and professionally. It's a great venue. But yeah, it's the hardest thing I found was that I went there by myself. Like, I didn't know anyone. Like, the guys that I knew that would go over would either went over with someone else or already knew people over there when they went, so they kind of had a bit of a lifeline. And I knew nobody. Like, I had to just basically sort out my own accommodation, sort out how I'm going to get there, who's going to pick me up from the airport, like all that kind of stuff. It was all very much on me. I'm very thankful for, once I got over there, I managed to make a lot of friends that helped me out in all kinds of ways, which is really good, especially from the guys, not just in my class, but from the previous classes. But yeah, that was probably the biggest one, was just going there by myself and being in a completely new country. First time I ever left the country, I don't know anyone here. It's a complete, sort of culture shock. This is a complete different area. It's not it's not where I grew up. It's not normal. It doesn't feel comfortable. But other than that, the training itself, I knew going into it that it was going to be tough, knowing Dr. Tom as a trainer and subscribing to their Patreon where they put up live streams of their training. I got a little bit of insight into what I had to be aware of. So the training itself, I felt, was an easier part of it, but just having to have that initial like journey there and being like, it took like 14 hours on one plane, and I had to take another 5-hour plane, and I had to run through Philadelphia airport to get to my next plane. Otherwise, I wouldn't actually get to Knoxville. But it was around the time Mania, so Philadelphia airport was full of all the Mania stuff, and I wanted to stop and look at that, but I had to run to the other side of the airport, you know. So that's probably the hardest thing. Like everything else, I want to say was tough, but like because I was surrounded by a lot of like supportive people and guys that like genuinely wanted to help you out, I felt that those kind of things were easy. You know? Like it was easy to assimilate, it was easy to get into the training, it was easy to get around once I got there. But just having that initial moment of like, shit, like I'm getting on a plane to go across the world for 3 months, basically leaving my life behind to just focus on wrestling, is like, that's like I can't back out now. You know, like this is it. Like I'm at the batting line. I'm here. Like I have to commit to it now. You know?
I once again, like I couldn't imagine going overseas by myself for anything. Like even if I was just going on holidays, let alone like not really like working per se, but like to go over there and, you know, do what you're doing. So you're training, and you might as well say you're working. Like that's insane. Yeah. Like to be that fresh into the business as it is, and then you go to a completely different country. They're driving on the wrong side of the road. You're trying to work out, you know, how to navigate, and you're just trying to, you know, all the bells and whistles in general. And then it's like, oh, you've got to do this X amount of days a week. Like,
and they had so many weird road rules. Like they have one over there where if the lights red, you can just turn right as long as it's clear. I'm like, that's like, no wonder I feel like a crash on every road. At least every week I went up to training, you know. But yeah, like it was like at the time, like when I went, I was already like 6-7 years wrestling in Australia with UPW. So I felt like I had a good base. But even then, like when I went there and when I got there, like I met some guys, they call it the Kazanas. They're amazing dudes, huge NWA guys at the moment. I believe they're the US tag champs, but they're just great people overall, and they really helped me out a lot. Casey Kazan is probably one of my best mates there now, and AJ had like tons of knowledge for me. And when I got there, I worked out that I'd been like technically wrestling longer than the both of them, and they told me like, look, if we're in a match together, we're listening to you. You're the vet. And I'm like, seriously? Like,
no pressure?
You sure you guys are both not only like fourth generation like wrestlers, but also you're here with Dr. Tom pretty much your whole time you've ever been trained, plus you're in the NWA, and you guys are going to listen to me in a match? Like, what the fuck? Like, are you sure about that? And like, because like you said, like it felt like I was just starting fresh. Like I had a good base, but it felt like, you know what, everything I did before was just sort of training to now really set myself up for these 3 months. Like I had the regular training 5 nights a week, and then Saturday, Sunday, and sometimes Fridays, I'd be having a match at shows. You know, like I had a match the first week I got there because they found out I've been a wrestler for 7 years, and they were like, "Hey, do you want to wrestle this weekend?" I'm like, "Yeah, why not? Sign me up." I'm not going to say no.
This is going to be kind of like a little softball before we get into the whole Pogo the Clown stuff, but just what was your favorite thing, though, about being over there, challenges aside?
It's honestly just like, it sounds a bit cheesy, but it felt like the territory days, like guys getting in cars, just driving to wherever they need to go to wrestle, late nights at like Applebee's, talking shit, like just making fun. Like I had so much fun at School of Morton. Like those guys are so amazing, and such a great community that those guys have. And they've moved into a new building recently, and it looks awesome. I can't wait to go back. But like anytime I went there, like I felt so welcomed by like people I'd never even met. And it was like, oh, cool, you know, you're Australian, that's awesome. You're a clown, that's awesome. You wrestle, that's awesome. Like, let's get you in the ring, let's have fun, you know. And there's a funny story about how I actually started going to the School of Morton, but we might get to that a little bit later. But pretty much, like, it was the best memories I have of it is just the community and like all the hanging out with the guys, shooting the shit, like just talking about wrestling, cracking jokes, pulling ribs, all that kind of stuff. And it felt like very it felt very 80s, you know, it felt very 70s. It felt like this is what wrestling is meant to be, kind of thing.
Hell yeah! I see. Like again, I've been in. I worked out. I think it was last week. I put up a post on my personal Facebook. I worked out that I've technically been in the business for 11 years this year. Granted, I only wrestled for 3 of them and only trained for you know, a handful of them all up. But I worked out I've been in and around the business for over a decade, and I was like, when the fuck did that happen? Like, time flies when you're having fun. But did you want to share the story about the School of Morton real quick before we move on?
Yeah, because this is actually kind of funny, and it's sort of like explains like my experience as a whole there of just like this level, my experience being there of like, wow, that just happened. So, like, I was at an event. I was wrestling. I did a match. Gabe Sapolsky was there. He was scouting some guys. I wrestled a dude called Brandon Davis, who's like I think he has like 50,000 followers, and he's a big Marvel commentator. He just started a new podcast called Phase Zero, but he's always doing interviews with like Marvel actors and stuff. And Ricky Morton was there, and I had my match, and no, I had, at this point, all I'd said to Ricky was hello, and like shook his hand, like, as you know you do. And after my match, he comes up to me and like, hey, Pogo, like, how long have you been working? I'm like, 7 years. Like, okay, I want you to come to my school tomorrow. We're training at this time. I want you to be there, and then I'm going to talk to you about getting you booked on the show. I'm like, in my head, I'm like, I immediately go like, yeah, no, that sounds great. I'll be there. No worries. Just I'll give me the address and I'll be there. But in my head, I'm going like, Ricky fucking Morton is saying, hey, I want you to come to my training school. And not only that, hey, I want to book you at my training school show promotion because I think you're cool. And I'm like, that's fucking, for me, with Ricky Morton being like one of my favorite wrestlers, I'm like, this is probably the only time in my whole life that I've actually like properly marked out, and I can't show it. But from there, like, I didn't realize that other guys from the show were going. So I was like, oh yeah, no, I'll get an Uber. It'll be fine. The Uber was like an hour away. And halfway through it, Uber driver just stops at a gas station, says, yeah, I'll be back. And then I was sitting in the car for like a solid 10 minutes while the car was running. And I'm like, this is such a weird experience. And the minute I set foot in there, I see like 3 guys from the JPWA, from the show last night, sitting there. And I'm like, well, goddamn, like I could have just got a ride with these guys. What the hell? And from there, Ricky just brought me up to the promoter and said, this is Pogo. He's training with Doc. He's from Australia. He's here for 3 months. Give him a spot. And then I was there the next day to wrestle on their show. That whole thing was just kind of like, that whole sequence of events from, because we had Gabe Sapolsky at the JPWA on Thursday night for like a sort of a private seminar. And then he was at the show on Friday. Then I went to Ricky Morton's school on Saturday, which Gabe was there as well. And then I was wrestling at School of Morton on Sunday. And I had a match there, and they said they loved me. They brought me back again next week, and they put me in the final 4 of their big their big rumble of the year. And they didn't tell me until the day of. They wrote on the board like, "Yep, Pogo's final 4." I'm like, okay, I've been here once. What the hell's going on? Like, it's very, very crazy, like set sequence of events, going from getting advice and doing a seminar with Gabe Sapolsky, who's now like running the WWID program, and WWE and has a big hand in like picking which guys actually go to tryouts from the independent scene, to having Ricky Morton, want me at his school and want to book me, and to now wrestling and then suddenly being like one of the School of Morton's like top guys, and I've been there for like 1 match,
Did you have any plans at all of going back over there anytime soon?
I do have, like, that's the long-term goal. Like, I want to eventually move over there. Given the current state of the world, it may be another 4 years before that's viable. But in between that, I definitely want to try and go again for at least like a month or something, because by the end of the time I was there, it just felt like that was where I was meant to be. Like, it's not just for wrestling, but just Tennessee as a whole is a really great state, and Knoxville area specifically is just so like such a lovely place to be and to live. So yeah, it's definitely in the books. It may be a little bit longer now considering everything, but I'm definitely going to plan to visit there even before I move there.
Do you still keep in touch with any of your fellow trainees from your time there?
Not the trainees. I had a very small class, and a lot of the guys kind of dropped. Some of the guys dropped out before halfway through class due to like personal stuff, and the guys that did finish, they don't really wrestle. So I'm kind of in the boat of I got more along with the advanced class guys because they're still around and they're still wrestling, and everyone else kind of like the JPWA is a good thing because it helps guys that want to improve more, but even if it's just something that you want to do for 3 months and see if you can do it, they accommodate that as well. Like they don't turn you away just because like, oh, you're not trying to like make it so if you're not serious about it, we don't want you sort of thing. It's like, look, this is wrestling. Wrestling's meant to be fun. You're meant to have fun doing wrestling, and it's meant to be fun to share the knowledge of wrestling to people. So it's very welcoming. And fortunately, I don't talk to anyone that in my class, but I still talk to like all the other JPWA graduates I got to meet, and some people I haven't even met yet from like England and all that. I still talk to like every once in a while just because like they're super friendly.
Hell yeah, that's awesome. But what about like the whole Pogo the Clown thing? Like obviously we don't want to pull the curtain back too much, but this is a wrestling podcast. We know what we're getting. In terms of what you have done as Pogo, I know you've kind of changed outfits a few times here and there, and the face paint's changed a little bit here and there, but what are the main major influence that you've had to the actual character in terms of deciding on the actual gear and the face paint, and of course just the name itself?
So the name, like the original idea for Pogo the Clown and like the name and all that wasn't 100% my idea. It was sort of given to me by the promoter of like, hey, we want to put you in this tag team. Need to be a clown because that's the theme of it. And at the time we were like, we weren't liked. We were bad guys, so got to be a heel. And the only like sort of evil clown name you can really sort of think of is Pogo the Clown. Connotations aside of the actual Pogo the Clown, but from that part, I was like, look, this is what's given to me. I'm a bit iffy about the name just because I know I'm a big like true crime guy, so I know a lot about John Wayne Gacy, and I kind of wanted to be like, I'm going to make this my own thing. I'm going to try and stay away from a lot of that. Although at like my peak, one of my favorite like year I had was John Wayne Gacy inspired because I was meant to be at that point in time a mega heel, so it felt right. But other than that, my main influences, like I don't have a singular one. I sort of just draw from circus, carnival, clown stuff as a whole. Like it's not specific to one sort of clown. And fun fact, like my mum's family, who are from the Netherlands, were actually in a circus when they were younger, and I didn't find this out until like I've already been Pogo the Clown for like 2-3 years. I thought it was a funny coincidence, but all my great uncles are clowns themselves, so I kind of had that sort of familial history there already. But like I like to consume a lot of media. I like watching movies. I like reading books. I like reading comic books. Like, if there's anything that tells a story, I like to get into it. So, like, I get obviously a lot because of my green hair, comparisons to the Joker, and like I can understand it, but that's not really that's not the main thing. There's a lot more nuance to me as a character and also as a clown. Like it's not just I've got green hair, I'm like the Joker. Like, no, I'm also taking stuff from clowns from like the 1800s, guys who started the whole process of like clown face paint, guys that popularized different types of clowning. Like when I got given this idea, like I was like, like I said, I'm not going to half-ass it. I'm going to deep dive into not just the history of wrestling, but now I was like, okay, well, clowns, like what clowns throughout history, famous clowns, like clowns in media, clowns in movies and TV shows and all that kind of stuff. So it's sort of just as a whole, just clowns in general, I've sort of taken from. there's bits and bobs that I'm like, oh, I saw this one dude have a really nice jacket. I'm going to get something that's inspired by that, or this face paint's really good. I'm going to use those eyes with this mouse that I saw and do these colors. You know, like it's a very, very mix match sort of idea to make it my own. You know, like it's not a saying that was told a lot at the JPWA is that it's not stealing if you take from everybody. You know, then it's research. So that's what I did pretty much.
This next question was actually sent in from Instagram, and I feel terrible and unprofessional because I didn't write down who sent the question in. Anyway, bouncing off that same question, I can't even remember who asked it. They said, "Oh, you're all good." So
you might hear some knocking in the background. It's just one of my cats playing with the door.
that is okay. Kat wanted to be on the podcast. The question was, have you had any official clown training, or do you know any actual circus tricks? And I'm sorry to whoever sent that in.
That's all right. Well, apologies to whoever sent that in, but I have done a couple beginner circus classes. Again, when I didn't even know I was going to get into wrestling. I didn't even know I was going to be a clown in wrestling. Since then, I've sort of expanded my repertoire a little bit. There's some things I'm not super good at. I'm still not the best at juggling, but I'm really good at blowing up balloons. But I'm not good at making balloon animals. So that's why I've tried to pick a lot from different sort of types of circus acts and clowns. So I'm not sort of just typecast as this one thing. Makes it a bit easier being a clown that there's a lot of different types of clown comedy. I prefer to think of myself more as a physical comedy clown than your clown tricks. But the only thing that I was really good at in those circus classes was plate spinning, and I've yet to bring that out in a match or an entrance or anything like that. But I keep trying to slot it in somewhere whenever possible.
I'm just going to keep my eye out for when you have some sort of hardcore match and you get a trash can lid and do the plate spin and then smash it over someone's head.
Pretty much that was one of my ideas. Oh man, if I ever do a hardcore match or a street fight, I can pop it out there just as a quick little spot and just spin it on a kendo stick or something. But I have as of yet to have a hardcore match or a street fight where it would make sense to do that.
So just switching gears a little bit back into the actual UPW stuff, where as we record this, it is the 22nd of April, but on May 3rd and May 31st respectively, we have the Lucha show, and then we obviously have Fight for Life 8. I know you're going to be on both of those shows. Could you just tell us a little bit what we can expect from you on those shows and just basically just plug the cards as a whole? Yeah,
so the card for Fireflies isn't 100% finalized yet. That's going to be a great event. It's one of our big events of the year. You could equate it to a SummerSlam type of thing. We've got our Undisputed Glory, we've got Fight for Life. Those are our three big ones. So this year, as with every year, we do 20% of the proceeds towards the Leukemia Foundation for families of cancer patients themselves. It's a really good thing that we can do to sort of give back to the community. And as I'm sure a lot of people know, you either have met someone that has had cancer or a family member that has had cancer yourself. Especially in UPW, there's a lot of people that have experienced it firsthand via family members, friends, all that kind of stuff. So it's a very good show to sort of support, not just even as a fan, but just, just sharing stuff, donating, anything you can. It's all really good because all the proceeds go to it. That's going to be at Aussie World as well, so it's going to be a big event. We try to make them bigger every year, and so far from what I know, it's going to be pretty big already, and that's still not everything's finalized. But for the Lucha event, I can talk a little bit more about that because I'm wrestling Bobby Solstice's big return, Masked Luchador, in the main event. So that's going to be a fun one. It's a good thing for, again, a community, because that's just set up at our UPW studios in the local area of Morayfield. So if there's any Brisbane locals listening to the podcast, I definitely recommend checking it out. It should be, by the time this releases, the coming week, I believe.
Yeah, it will be dropping this Sunday on the 27th.
Yeah, so it'll be the week. If you're hearing this, it'll be the week coming up. So it's a good chance to sort of just have a fun night of lucha libre wrestling. Everyone likes guys in masks. It's always fun. For me personally, I love the lucha libre style. It's pretty much if I wasn't going to go the path I did, and also if I could roll my R's better when I was learning Spanish, I would have instead chosen to go to Mexico at some point in my life and make that my main career goal. I instead got hooked by territory wrestling, and now I want to go to America instead, in Tennessee. But it's going to be a fun event. We've got a lot of people that you might know. We've got but under a mask, we've got some new characters, all that kind of stuff. It's more of what you would think of just like a house show, just for a community sort of thing. But that's going to be really fun, and both of these can be found, like the event links themselves can be found online through the tickets. But I'll be posting, like if anyone here hearing the podcast follows me, I'll be posting up pretty much all the matches that get put up as they get put up. But yeah, that's pretty much the stuff I can talk about at the moment. There's still some things up in the air for May 31st. You never know what's going to happen. If we're lucky, there might be a special attraction match between myself and another JPWA guy if things work out, but I'm not going to set anything in stone just yet and jinx myself.
We'll just put it out in the universe and see where that takes us, I think.
Yeah, it works for this podcast. It might work for this match too. You never know.
But with that being said, Pogo, this is the part of the pod where we kind of start to mark out just a little bit as we start to wind down. What are some of your favourite matches of all time, both that you've had personally and that you've seen?
I knew this question was coming, and I still struggled to pick even just a couple. I'm gonna do my favorite matches I've seen first, because that's always going to be a lot easier. And at the top straight away, a match that I watch at least once a week is the Midnight Express versus the Rock and Roll Express. I can tell you the exact date and location. It's May 11th, 1984 at the same Houston Coliseum. You can find it on YouTube. It's probably in my opinion, the best example of tag team wrestling of the 70s days that you could find literally anywhere. It's two teams at their peak, just going out there, calling in the ring, and having 20 minutes of uninterrupted just entertainment and wrestling, and the whole crowd itself gets into it, which is amazing to see. But I've watched it probably hundreds of thousands of times, and every time I watch it, it's this is the greatest match I've ever seen. That easily stands above everything else for me. But as broader strokes, pretty much any Midnight Express match or rock and roll match is one to go. I'm a big 80s wrestling guy, so that's pretty much where all my favorite matches come from. There's another one which I knew I was going to forget who was in it, so I wrote it down. Let me just quickly bring up my notes for this while I vamp real quick. This is some good podcasting right here.
Intermission.
Bobby Eaton versus Brad Armstrong at Wrestle War 1991. This is all stuff you can find on YouTube. That's why I love watching it. And this was a match that we actually watched at the JPWA doing a match review and tape study. And watching it play out and having Dr. Tom talk about his personal opinions about it, I'm this all makes complete sense. This is a great match. It may not be what people's first thought is, but you go back and watch it and this is unbelievably entertaining. This is peak wrestling basically. But other than that,
the sad part is, not to cut you off, I do apologize. You the moment you said that, I'm the first thought that went through my head, unfortunately, was how many people that listen to this episode aren't going to know who Brad Armstrong is, and that kind of makes me a little bit sad, if I'm honest.
Yeah, and that's to any wrestling fans or even just wrestlers themselves listening to the podcast, 100%. You watch any sort of classic wrestling, it's anything from 1989 to like the 70s or anything like that, you pick any match, and 9 times out of 10, it's going to be probably one of the best things you've ever seen in your life, and it's gonna change your whole perspective of how wrestling should be done. You know, like or even just how you enjoy wrestling, because that was the thing for me. I was like, I like a lot of different types of stuff. I like watching CMML. I like watching like Japanese wrestling of all kinds. I like watching old school territory wrestling. I like watching current stuff. You know, I watch everything and everything I like pretty much. But the territory stuff, especially, that was like where it sort of clicked for me. I was like, wow, this is like, it's not just wrestling. This is like storytelling. Like I can just look at these guys, have no idea who either of them are, no idea what like the build for this match is, no idea what anything's happening. Watch it and just be like, oh, I understand that these guys are good guys, these guys are bad guys, and this is why they're mad at each other from just 20 minutes. You know, like to me, that's like the pinnacle of wrestling.
I'm like the 80s WWF style, like the sports entertainment style, like that's probably my favorite area with like the over the top stuff with like Hogan and Macho and all that stuff, just because that's what my dad showed me. Yeah. But literally what kickstarted that at the same time was just before that. And I mean, half of those guys were plucked from the territories anyway. But like that territory stuff, when you go back and watch it, it's, dare I say it, it's real wrestling. Like it's just, you know, it's very, it's wrestling. It's just that's the stuff. I love that stuff, man. That's so good.
Yeah, and that's like, and it's more modern, but like if you still want to get like that type of feel, even the stuff that the NWA is doing currently, like is on that level. Like I saw a match recently. It was through Willie Silas Mason, who's awesome dude, awesome wrestler, versus Colby Carino, and again, like it was just another just perfect example of just wrestling storytelling. Like you got Colby Carino, who's like half the size of Thrillbilly, but they still told an amazing story of like David versus Goliath, size versus strength, all that kind of stuff. And like God, I watched it the other week, and like, man, this is like brilliant. This is an amazing wrestling match. Holy shit! Like I can't believe I'm watching this. Like I was thankful to get a chance to do an NWA event live at I think it was Back to the Territories is what the event, and I had a dark match on that, and even just the feedback I got from everyone there was like, this is next level. Like this is probably, I think I already kind of got wrestling, but these guys are getting wrestling at a complete different level to everywhere else, and even dare I say it, like from most places in Australia, like it's just on a complete different level to what you can find here.
Oh, excuse me, sneezing live on the podcast. My God. But no, like the fact that you got to not only experience that, but the fact that you actively go back and watch a lot of that, man, like so many people wouldn't do that. Like we just did a thing, not to get another cheap plug on my own podcast, but over on my friend, What If It's Cool's YouTube channel for Reaction Wrestling Wednesdays, we do various Australian wrestling matches from all different, generations and stuff, depending on who we've got as a guest. Usually we try and get one of their matches, but we just did one with Harrison Ford from Victoria, and he's very big into the territory days, and we did, oh God, I'm going to butcher which Von Erich it was. I think it was Kerry Von Erich when he won his first championship from Ric Flair. Off the top of my head, I can't bloody remember which.
That would have been, I think that was
dude,
Kerry.
like that is... Like, it still holds up so much. And obviously, Flair was a bit more on, like, the sports entertainment side, even in the territory days. But, like, just, they're in, like, a baseball stadium or something, and it's just packed to the brim, and it's freaking insane.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like everyone has their own opinions about wrestling, which is completely fine. And I myself, I personally love Lucha Libre wrestling. I think it's awesome. But, like, to have it as... If you treat wrestling like strictly as a business, it literally does not get any better than that 80s territory period, because that's when everyone made the most money. If you're treating wrestling as a business to make money, that's what you want to emulate, because that's where they made the most money, sort of thing. And that's how they did it the best possible way to make the most money. It may not be everyone's cup of tea, admittedly, but that if you want to make money, that's all you got to look at, is look at the time periods where wrestling was the hottest, things were doing the best. And admittedly, like Attitude Era, they were kind of sort of helped out by the fact that was an era of like stock value as well, not just in wrestling, but throughout the whole world. So they got away with a lot more stuff than they probably should have, considering some storylines. But yeah, like it's territory wrestling will forever be like one of the greatest things that I'll always just champion no matter what.
Hell yeah. And what about the matches that you've had?
The matches I've had, this is like really tough because it's like one, I don't want to sound full of myself, but I had so many matches that it's hard to remember like specific ones. I did actually like find this one recently again as my very ever like first match where I wasn't Pogo, I was a completely different person called Mojo Powers. And it was like, looking back on it, like it's a match that still like holds up pretty well in my opinion, considering it's two guys. Oh my god! Sorry about that. It's two guys that like me and the other guy in there. We'd never had a match in front of a crowd before. It was the first ever match for both of us. We didn't have anyone in there telling us what to do, leading us through it. It was literally just two guys go out there, have your match, have fun, pretty much. And like looking back on it, it was a great experience, not just because what it meant to me and the other dude at the time, because we were in what was classed as like the featherweights because we were smaller guys. Like you look back on that match now, I look like half the size I do now, which is hilarious. But like we were both told, like I personally was told when I first started training that like I was never gonna be a pro wrestler, you know. And we were told in the lead up to this match, like while we were currently training as pro wrestlers, me and the other dude, that you guys will never be wrestling on our show. And I'm like, okay, well, now that this makes you want to do it more, so I'm going to put in more effort. I'm going to get in training even more than anyone else, and show you that like I don't care what your opinion is. Like I'm going to be a wrestler. I'm going to prove it to you. And in hindsight now, like I've been to America. I've had 12 weeks straight of training and wrestling. I did at least 50 matches within those 12 weeks, and I got an NWA dark match. And the guy who told me that I'll never be a wrestler hasn't done any of that. So you know, look at where I am now. Look at where you are now. That kind of thing. But that was pretty my favorite
cool,
one.
Though, to be honest, like to have that kind of self vindication of hey, you got to do that. That's really cool.
I think that was another reason why I really wanted to go to JPW. Like it was definitely like a dream, but it was also sort of like hey, like I've been told, not just like in wrestling, but my whole life that I'm not going to amount to anything. I'm not going to get anywhere, all that kind of stuff. And having that, and then on top of having that in wrestling, I was like, okay, well, now you just want to make me prove that even more, sort of thing. So I'm going to do it. I'm going to take it to the next level, higher than anyone else can do it around here. So what better step than to take that to America, to the heart of Southern Pro Wrestling, Tennessee, and have all these amazing experiences, And even now, like I've sort of had to slow it down a little bit for a couple of reasons, health-wise, but like I can still hold on to the fact that I had 12 straight weeks of wrestling in Tennessee. I was having at least 4 matches a week, and I got to have an experience with the NWA. I got to train under Dr. Tom. I got to meet Ricky Morton, who's one of my heroes, and I got to do a couple of seminars with Damien Sandow, now Aaron Stevens. And even then, like what I learned from him from like 30 minutes was amazing. I had all these experiences that were so worth it. Like, even though I've had to sort of slow down a little bit, like I said, I can still hold on to that stuff no matter what,
That's a pretty big list of names that you managed to learn from in such a short amount of time too. Like 3 months or 3 months, but in the grand scheme of things, like that's only a quarter of a year. Like to have Dr. Tom and Ricky Morton and Aaron Stevens like all in this very small Gabe Sapolsky. Yeah, that's how do you manage to cram all that information in such a short amount of time is what I want to know. Like, wow.
I took a whole lot of notes, so I wouldn't forget that. anything that I couldn't immediately write down, I got other people's notes and be like, hey, can you send that to me because I don't want to forget this. I think with the people there over in America that a lot of them don't sort of realize, given how wrestling is in America compared to Australia, is that they're unbelievably lucky that they can reasonably just drive 2 hours and go to do a Gabe Sapolsky seminar for $99, or there's Dr. Tom's in the area, he's going to do a seminar, yeah, I'll go to that, I'll learn some bit. Or you've got any number of name guys, one of the places I wrestled at, I just saw that they're hosting a seminar with the Good Brothers, Carl Anderson, and you don't get that in Australia. It's very rare to get a guy who has trained, wrestled, been a top star anywhere on TV. It's very rare to get that opportunity, and usually when it's in the one place in Australia that costs $600 to get to, one way. So having those opportunities there, doesn't matter if I fry my brain completely trying to remember everything. I'm gonna ask every single question I can. I'm gonna get every single piece of knowledge I can get from these guys. Aaron Stevens helped me film promos and talk to me a little bit more about character work. All the feedback I got from my NWA Dark match from everyone that came up to me, I was like, yep, I can't get to my phone right now, but I'm going to remember that and then write it down immediately. And yeah, I think Australian wrestling is really great, but it definitely suffers from the fact that it's so isolated. It's there's no second generation wrestlers. There's no guys that have done TV for 10 years and trained and worked with all these great people. Anyone that's kind of done that either has stepped away from wrestling or has moved back to America, sort of thing. So that's why I was trying to bring as much knowledge as I could, as many notes as I could write down, so I could share that with people around here that want to learn that stuff. And there's been a couple of people that hit me up and hey, I want to find out what you learned, because I basically got from Gabe Sapolsky himself, I got the whole rundown of what the WWE looks for their independent wrestling recruits. I'm well, who wouldn't want to know exactly what they're looking for, And I'm kind of surprised that even when I've been trying to offer hey, this is what I can tell you, and people kind of have just ignored me around here, but then some people 5 hours away be yeah, and let me know, because I want to take this seriously, so I'm actually going to take those notes. It's Australian wrestling is very interesting compared to a lot of other places I've found in terms of attitude and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Without burying people, there does seem to be more lazy people, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, it's a rough situation because we're so isolated. Where the WWE is coming again this year for the next big event, whatever that is, the 3-day one. But they're gonna the seminar that they did for Elimination Chamber. Gabe Sapolsky told this story of they had about I think he said 12 or 14 people that he personally picked to do that from the independent scene. One person got signed.
Yeah.
So if you've got that many people and only one person gets signed, it gets really, really, really hard to sort of get in your own gear and be look, I can do this, I can get there. It's reasonable, but you have to be that one in not just 14 people, but one in the whole of Australia that they're looking for that fits what they want, when they want it, and all that kind of stuff. And if you miss out on an opportunity, you have to wait until the next time they get there, which you never know when that's going to be. But if it's in America, they're always touring. They're always going to be in one city, one state. There's always an opportunity there.
Yeah, the amount of people that, jump at the chance to just do any sort of extra work, and honestly, maybe rightfully so.
Yeah, Australian wrestling has a lot of its own sort of ways of doing stuff, which works for Australian wrestling. But there's a couple of friends in wrestling that I've talked to that find it hard to continue sticking to their dream. They want to be a wrestler, but it's very hard because they live 2 hours away from a major city, so they have to either drive or fly anywhere if they want to get bookings. Or there's only 2 promotions near where they are, but the people who run them aren't very nice people or won't book them, or there's no spots for them, or any number of laundry list of reasons, so they have to go in a state. And it's like, well, yeah, like it's not like in Tennessee alone, like you just drive an hour and find a completely different promotion with a bunch of different people. Whereas in Queensland itself, like it's very spread out and very not spread out at the same time. Like there's like roughly four companies around where I live, and three of them have all the same people at the same one. So there's not really like a lot of diversity, but at the same time there is diversity, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
no,
I got you.
Still like a 3-hour drive one way, even though it's the same people that you can see in Brisbane in that 3-hour drive, and vice versa, sort of thing. So it's good for those small communities, but like as a wrestler itself, it's really hard to sort of get past that point of like, you know, got to break out somehow.
Hell yeah. With that being said, before we get to the last official question, the last wrestling question, and this is always open for interpretation in terms of goals or dreams. You can be as realistic or as unrealistic as you like, but who are some of your dream opponents, and what is your dream stipulation?
This was another question that I knew was coming and was so hard to like pick a singular one. Because, like, I think in the absolute perfect world, and even just like, well, even in America, it's probably a lot more reasonable to happen than I actually thought before I went over there. But I'd definitely love to wrestle Ricky Morton just once, because I know he's getting up there in age, and he still kills it no matter what, even at the age he is now, considering all the bumps I've seen him take, even just on the shows I was at. But I'd love to wrestle Ricky Morton. And I'd love it to be like an old school like strap match where the all four corners type of one, because I saw one of those in America too, and it was just done so perfectly. And I thought, this is like, I want to do that. Like I was immediately like looking up at like Bunnings, like how do I get this certain length of rope to be this thickness or that kind of stuff, so I can somehow do a bull rope match in Australia.
Hell yeah. The funny thing is, I've got a bull rope on my like watch list, and it's literally from all the way up in your neck of the woods, because nowhere locally seemed to know what I wanted, or it wasn't the right thickness or length or stuff like that. But I found like a Saturday place like up in rural Queensland, and I'm like, fuck it, at this point I'll just pay for the postage.
Yeah, I talked to one of my friends that like she didn't like work in Bunnings or anything. She works in like this hardware supplies or something like that. And I asked her, how do I go about getting a rope, like a proper rope that's this thickness, this size? I'm like, yeah, you have to like special order it. Like, well, that sucks, man. Like you could just go down to Walmart and get a perfect 8-foot long bull rope in a like prepackaged. Like what the hell? Like why is it so hard to get it here in Australia? Can't you just prepackage it here?
I love that. But Rick versus Ricky Morton in like a strap match or you know what though, like the thing is, even if you just got to roll around with him like in training and stuff, and like have like a practice match, like that is still like so much more than so many other people would get. So like honestly, if that's your goal, I'd say push for that shit, because it's not out of the realm of possibility. Like that dude's doing Canadians and Australians and shit right now. Like he's going crazy.
I thought going into it, I thought going into like Ricky Morton was like a pretty like hot commodity. Like you had to like really work for it to get a match, and he's super happy to like wrestle anyone. He just loves wrestling, and it's like, fuck, man, I could maybe next time when I get there next time, I reckon I could somehow sort out a match, or even just getting in the ring with Ricky Morton once would be enough for me personally. Like it was only happened once, and it was only because we happened to have just the right amount of people at our class. We did a little bit of tag training, and I actually got to get in the ring with Doc and do some tag stuff with him, and I thought that's fucking awesome. He's a bit sore and beaten down at this point, but he was still like going through holes and all that. I'm like, man, this is surreal sort of thing. And that was just in training.
That is so cool, man. Like I'm having like marking out like secondhand right now, just like trying to picture that in my head. That's so sick. It's so sick.
I I was there and had to play it cool. So it was like, oh my god, this is like. Anytime he needed like a dummy to show how to do a move, because I was the only guy that had training, and all the other guys were like brand new. So it was like, oh, okay, we're going to learn how to do sunset flips, and I'm like, okay, cool. Like I'll as long as one of the other guys just bends over, I can do this while Doc explains it. And then Doc like gets in the ring, stands in front of the ropes, and just bends over. I'm like, okay, I'm guessing giving Dr. Tom Pritchard a sunset flip. This is gonna be cool. And it was probably the safest sunset flip I've ever given anyone. I hooked him with my legs and just perfectly placed him down as soft as possible, because I thought if I hurt him, he was gonna beat the shit out of me.
I love that so much. Before we get to all the plugs, the final question is always a non-wrestling question. We try our best to tailor it to our individuals. Obviously, as you said, you've earlier before, when I asked you about the Pogo the Clown stuff and your influence and stuff, you rattled off a few names there. But who is your all-time favorite TV/movie clown?
Ooh, TV/movie clown. I thought you were going to go historical. Okay, this is going to be a bit of a thinker, because like I said, everyone expects me to pick the low-hanging fruit and go oh yeah, it's the Joker. And I have to admit, growing up, I did think as a villain, great character, but I wouldn't say he's my favorite. I would honestly have to this is very specific for me personally, but it's the I can't remember the actor's name off the top of my head, but the clown It from the original TV movie. It's gonna kill me.
So Tim Curry's version of Pennywise.
Tim Curry, yeah, the Tim Curry Pennywise. That version.
Excuse
of Pennywise,
me, madam. Is your refrigerator running? Well, you better catch it. It's so stupid, but it's so good.
To me, it's that perfect mix of scary clown, but he himself just looks like a regular clown. That's where everyone got that initial fear of clowns, because he just looks like a regular carnival clown, but he's also scary as hell. So I definitely, if early on, I definitely took a lot from that performance of how I was figuring out what I was going to do for Pogo. And then once I got more comfortable in that, I built it off a lot more clowns. But TV movie clown, it's got to be Tim Curry easily.
Dude, I remember and this is going back, I don't even know how many years, but for the longest time, it was it still is a cult classic, but obviously it originally aired as a TV movie, so the whole thing goes for 3 hours, because it was an hour and a half in each part. But I remember when they first brought it out on Blu-ray, probably just over 10 years ago now. I remember pre-ordering that, because it had been in Blu-ray in the US a couple of times, but it had never been worldwide. Yeah. I remember when they first released it on Blu-ray in Australia. I remember pre-ordering that from JB Hi-Fi. I think I paid $40, which is ridiculous for just one little movie. But I was I've still got it, and it's got the little steelbook thing with his little picture drawn on, and that's one of my favorite prized possessions is that that original version of it on Blu-ray.
Yeah, It's so hard to pick a singular clown for TV and movie, because you got I sort of picked the easy one of just going what you'd think of as a regular clown, but even just any sort of comedy, pratfall, that sort of vibe of comedy, I love watching. I'm a huge Muppet fan. A lot of my jokes and humor and mannerisms come from the Muppets, its original 1970 TV show. So that's if you are a Muppets fan, there's a lot of that sort of humor, as well as Looney Tunes stuff as well. Anything sort of physical comedy, I love. So
see, this is just making all the sense now as to why I've been so drawn to your character, even just through what I've seen on social media and stuff.
Yeah, I have to Tim Curry, my favorite, but I have to absolutely give a shout out to anything Muppets related, anything Looney Tunes related, because that's that wasn't even Pogo the Clown specific. That's just that's the stuff I like, and the humor I like anyway. And it was so easy to just then translate that to the clown stuff when I started becoming a babyface clown and be a lot more of a good guy. So I can now just do all that stuff that I always liked doing in my personal life, and now do it as an actual clown as well.
As a side note, before we jump into the plugs, I'm still very sad that they have shelved the live action Wile E. Coyote movie, mainly just because John Cena was going to be playing one of the evil Acme lawyers. But like, how the hell do you do this whole ass movie, put it in production, and then just put it on the shelf? Wile E. Coyote is like that's my go-to when it comes to Looney Tunes.
Yeah, like that, like the Wile E. Coyote one, that was like perfect. Like bit like story, like body language storytelling. Like it's a 2D cartoon, sure, but they told a story with like zero dialogue, and to me, that's an easy translation to wrestling. Because like if you're meant to be in a stadium with like if you saw like watching WrestleMania, you saw some people like way up there, couldn't see a damn thing. You've got to be able to tell the story, not just like if you're yelling to the crowd or anything like that, but with your body language. And that was something that I can't remember who said it, because I've listened to like so many wrestling podcasts over the years. It all sort of blends together. But they were talking about Jerry the King Lawler, of how great a performer he was, because you could look at the back of his head and from his body language, you could tell what face he was making. And I don't know why they just like clicked with me. Like, yeah, like that's, if you're in a stadium and you've got all these people, or even in a small show where it's like very compact, like there's going to be people that are only going to see like the back of your head. So you've got to be able to tell a story with your whole body. And also watching like Lucha Libre, they tell a story with their whole body because they don't have facial expressions.
I was just about to say that. That's why I appreciate like true luchadors, because same thing, like if they're wearing a mask, let alone seeing the back of the head, like you need to know what they're feeling. Like that's...
Yeah, you need like you've now basically being a luchador with a mask. You've now just taken like half your selling ability away by getting rid of your facial expression. So you have to now show that with your whole body, and like that's what like hooked me with it. That like there was a documentary on Netflix that I actually watched before I went for my first training session. I watched two. I watched The Resurrection of Jake the Snake on Netflix, and I watched this one which is called Lucha Mexico, and it just follows like a bunch of the CMLL stars throughout their like just throughout wrestling. It's a classic documentary, and it's just so in depth of like the story, the history of Lucha Libre, like why the guys that do it love doing it, the like why it's such a lonely like thing to be a luchador as well. And it felt like so humanizing and great of like, yeah, this is like, I saw this and I sort of prepped myself for wrestling because like, I'm going to watch probably like the two, coupled with The Resurrection of Jake the Snake, two examples of like how low wrestling can get, but at the same time, how great it can make you feel. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? Even after watching this, I really, really want to do it because it's so worth like not just the low points, but like all the high points are so worth low points is what I'm trying to say. Like in wrestling, it's so hard to find any sort of profession that kind of goes through the same stuff of like being on the road or being constantly having to perform at your best, and no one can really understand it except other guys in the business. You know, you can't just take it home and have everyone in your family immediately understand like, oh, this is why, you know, you're sitting on the couch all day is because your body's completely shot because you took a bunch of bumps last night. You know, it's like, no, you still have to get up and live your regular life. But in a long-winded tangent, like if you can find that Lucha Mexico documentary, it's unbelievably worth the watch. There's another one called Tales of the Masked Men, which is also good, but that's more about like individual people, whereas that 2015 documentary is like specifically the CMML guys.
I'll have to keep an eye out for that one because I've never actually heard of that before. So there you go. That's something for me to study up on and see if I can find it.
I think it's a bit hard to find now in Australia. It was on Netflix a while ago. I ended up just buying it directly from the distributor because I'm like, this is one of my favorite documentaries ever. I still watch it anytime like I need to get back my love of wrestling. And like I think it was only like $20, something cheap, but I know it's super hard to find on like any streaming services in Australia. I think it might be on Apple TV last time I looked, but I'm not 100% sure on that.
There you go. But with that being said, Pogo the Clown, where can we find you on social media? I know you mentioned the UPW shows before, but what upcoming events do you have? And can we buy any of your merchandise?
So yeah, on Instagram, my tagline, my handle is just Pogo_the_clown_PW. Usually, as long as you start typing in Pogo _, it'll pop up. That's really like my main social media. I do have like a Facebook page, but and I'm not a big social media guy, so I tend to just have the one thing so I can focus on that and not have to juggle a bunch of different accounts at the same time. I don't currently have anywhere you can buy merch, unfortunately, just because the old online store I had to get shut down. But I am in the process of making sorting something new out for shirts and all that. But if you hit me up, I can usually work out like just individual orders. Other than that, the main shows I've got coming up, the May 3rd Lucha event and May 31st Aussie World with Fight for Life 8. When this releases, I'll also be going to the IPW World of Dreams show at the moment just to help out, but you never know. If I suddenly pop up on there, it wasn't out of nowhere. It was just came out of me going there and helping out and sort of thing. So they're good guys to check out as well, IPW. And I think that's pretty much everything you asked. Yeah, yeah.
Hell yeah! I once again I appreciate you coming on to this show and just talking all things Pogo the Clown and talking all things wrestling. I wasn't entirely sure where this was going to go when I do it solo episodes. I've gotten so used to having a co-host for the interviews that I was like, man, am I going to talk too much or am I going to bore my guest? But I feel like we've had a pretty damn good conversation here, and it's making me just want to go and watch some old 70s and 80s wrestling now, to be honest with you. But I'll definitely try and find that CMLL documentary if I can as well. But I just thank you for coming on tonight and shooting the breeze, and hopefully it's not the last time, because again, I really enjoyed this conversation and learning about the stuff that you did over in the States. It was really cool to learn about.
Yeah, we've already got the hook of you haven't done one of these with your co-host Nova, and I hope she's feeling better. So we've already got one in the bag that we can do again with a co-host this time, and also I forgot to mention this earlier because I was going to bring it up, and then I got on a tangent of everything else. You were talking about that Wile E. Coyote Acme movie. I guess you haven't heard that it's actually getting released.
They're releasing it to like the public to basically bid on, pretty much. Well, not the public, but like other production companies to pretty much be like, hey, does someone want to buy this?
Well, not only that, it's been completed. It's expected to get a theatrical release in 2026. So it's a deal's done. We're just now going to wait for it to actually reach the public, sort of thing. So that's one thing that we can talk about next time. Hopefully, is
it'll be interesting
anticipation.
To see who actually ends up releasing that.
It got bought by it's like a not a lesser known sort of company called Ketchup Entertainment, but they spent like $50 million. I'm a bit of a film buff, so I know all this stuff. They spent $50 million on it, which totally worth it. I reckon it's going to be well worth all that money that they spent on it. And yeah, they say it's going to be released in 2026 theatrically. So hopefully Australia gets some of that. They did release another Looney Tunes movie that also wasn't going to be initially released, called The Day the Earth Blew Up, which I haven't seen yet, but
that's the Daffy Duck one, the Daffy Duck one that just came out. I'm really looking forward to actually watching that myself, to be honest. I'm just a big child. I found it hard to find a movie cinema nearby that's actually showing it. So I'm I'll just wait until it's on streaming, and then I can just watch it on my big ass TV at home without anyone being around me. I'll wait until it's $6 on Amazon Prime or something like that, and rent it for the night with Nova. Hell yeah! No,
but there you go.
Because I saw I think it was 3 weeks to a month ago where they released the thing saying basically they were taking offers from other production studios. I didn't know that there'd been an update and that it actually had been picked up. Hell yeah!
It was pretty quickly picked up. As soon as they opened bidding. So from my understanding, that the Ketchup Entertainment just swooped in and was like, you know what, 50 million on the table right now, let's go. And they hooked it up like immediately after that.
Imagine just having 50 million laying around and being like, yes, I will take your Looney Tunes spin-off. I mean, as if you wouldn't. It's the Looney Tunes, right?
If I had 50 million of my own money, I would absolutely be like, you know what, I'm going to buy that just for me, and I'm the only person who can watch it.
I appreciate you coming on tonight, man, and shooting the breeze with me. And again, just this conversation went in so many different directions that I was not expecting, but I really enjoyed it.
I knew that I was either going to go on a tangent or go on like one really long tangent or multiple short ones. So glad we got through it without too many of either of that. But
you and me
if we're going to do another one, there's more room to do it again then.
Appreciate you very much, mate. You have a good night.
No, you too, man.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was Pogo the Clown, and I'm so annoyed that I had that little flub when I said JPWA, and then I realized that the A in Academy stands for Academy. Y'all know what I fucking meant, but I feel like I did a pretty good job of rolling with it, considering how stuffed up my nose is right now. But no, just thank you again, as we say every time we have a guest. Thank you again for 100,000 bajillion, gajillion, I don't know, million. We just watched Austin Powers Goldmember the other day. Actually, we watched all 3 Austin Powers movies a couple of weeks ago, but we just watched Goldmember the other day, so that reference was just stuck in my head as I was saying that. As we say many, many times on all of these episodes when we do have guests, just thank you. We say it over and over again, but we just genuinely cannot stress just how grateful we are for people just giving us the time of day, basically, because we're an ever-growing podcast, we're a slowly growing podcast, but we're still. I'd like to think no matter how big the podcast gets, I'd always be humble. But no, I just like showing gratitude where gratitude is due. That's just who I am. That's just what I do, basically. But pretty much check out Pogo the Clown on all of the links that will be listed below, and of course the UPW shows that I'm about to go through in just a moment. Both myself and Nova have link trees because I'm a loving husband, because I'm a loving co-host, which is the most important part, at least within the realm of the podcast. Obviously, being a husband is much, much more important in real life. But because I'm such a loving co-host, Nova's link tree is down below, as always, as well. Obviously, you can find our personal Instagram pages. I have my graphics page. Nova has multiple pages for her Instagram. Obviously, she has her personal, which is private. She has her other one, which is also private, but she's going to accept more people than she would with her actual personal one, if that makes sense. Basically, if you're not a shit person, she'll accept you on the Supernova Lee and Friends one, and you can see all of our journeys and just travels and food and stuff like that. Obviously, _Nova_Lee, cheap plug, is her main like wrestling one, but that's all there. All the podcast socials are there. I say every week that I need to hurry up and do the actual CIC link tree so that it's more direct and it's not as cluttered, but I'll get there eventually. But yeah, it's all there. Mine has the Amazon wish list, the GoFundMe, all of that jazz. But yeah, mine and Nova's stuff, things, all there. The big thing is at the moment we're trying to get to 500 followers on Facebook so we can do our giveaway with the signed Edge plaque / piece of the SmackDown ring skirt from 02 to 08. But yeah, that's all there. As I said, go follow Pogo on all his stuff. I'll link the UPW stuff as well. As I said in the intro, because this was manifested through the Toos Company episode, I'm going to put their Toosy's Vibin' for a Cure link in the below as well. Team Stark raised all up. So we talked about in that episode, if you go back and listen to it with Toos, how they did, I think it was like $17,000 or $18,000, or may have even been more. But in just over 2 weeks, they've raised 30 grand now for all up, 30K for Team Starks, which is fucking awesome. So yeah, that link for that will be below. And of course, as I said, if for some reason you didn't listen to that episode with myself, Nova, Salty and Swasi, go listen to it. It was a lot of fun. A lot of love for those guys. They give myself and Nova a lot of entertainment, especially in moments of needing entertainment. If you subscribe to the Patreon, obviously you for $5 dues, as Novalee would usually say, you can get early access. It's usually 2 days where possible. This episode is going to be up like straight away. I'm recording this on Tuesday night. It's going to be up by Wednesday morning at the latest. So that's a pretty good deal. And then obviously tier 2 and up, $6 US, $10 Australian, you get instant access to book 1 of my 3-book miniseries. I really need to crack down and finish doing these so I can work on my first full-length children's book, which Spicy did say he would voice the villain for eventually when that gets to happen, but that's all there. Obviously, the $15 tier is my personal favourite because you get the video footage of mine and Nova's watch-alongs whenever we do those, and you actually get the option to pick a topic for an episode, whether that be a watch-along or a top 10 or a Markapalooza subject, etc., etc. And then obviously the top tier is the Supernova tier. I can't do it as well as Nova. I can kind of hear her in the background, so hopefully that pops her. You get everything and everything. Plus we get shout-outs for as long as you're a Patreon. If we get enough, I want to start doing Patreon exclusive giveaways where I give stuff away for slightly cheaper, but it's going to be worth it because you guys will only pay, $10, $20 for an entry. It's basically like gambling, but not as rigged. But yeah, that's all there. And then we move on to all of the actual links. So on May 3rd, we have UPW's Mexican Wrestling, or UPW Lucha, which I wrote in the notes just because it was quicker to write. The link to that is below. UPW Fight for Life, Saturday, May 31st. Obviously, we talked about that on the Twos episode as well, and then we touched on it here with Pogo raising money for cancer. Why not? Also, on the 31st of May in Victoria, we have MXW Let 'Em Cook, links below. ICW Tag Warfare on June 7th, link is below for the ACT fans. It's at the Canberra PCYC. And we just say, though, sidebar, I don't want to rant too long. Also on June 7th, internationally, so it'll be June 8th for us here in Australia. It's the same day as Money in the Bank. But earlier in that day, it's going to be like 5 a.m., I think, Australian time. But we have AAA versus NXT in a Worlds Collide event because WWE now own AAA. Like, that's fucking nuts to me. It was announced on day 1 of the WrestleMania pre-show. I was originally going to do WrestleMania review, but this has gone way too long with me ranting. Y'all don't want to hear me rant for another hour just talking about Mania. And then, obviously, capping off the year, the final date so far... Oh, I forgot something there. I'm going to leave that in. I don't even care. On July 19th, Extreme Capital Wrestling presents Guilty Verdict. Myself and Nova will not be there because life is happening and we've just got a lot of stuff going on with health and everything else, but just announced, actually, fatal 4-way match. Jackson Thornhill defends against Jake Gibson, Ashak, and Doomslayer, unfortunately, is out. Card subject to change. Zack Stryker is stepping up to be the 4th man. That was just announced on ECW socials, literally as I'm recording this this episode. So the fact that I forgot to add that to my notes before this outro is kind of on me. But hey, I'm going to leave that in because this is chaotic and this is what I do. And y'all can get mad at me because I got a lot going on right now. Capping off the year for me right now, obviously there'll be more shows after this, but the last one on my calendar that's written down yet is the October 11th Emma Butler Memorial Show. Obviously, I talked about that at length in the intro, as I'm going to keep doing for the next few episodes. I just dropped something on my foot. This is a professional production, I swear. But the most important part is the conversation with Pogo was very, very fun. I really, really enjoyed it. Definitely want to get him back on and talk more about some territory wrestling and just cartoons and whatever else he wants. Maybe Pogo the Clown, if he's not busy, when we do the Markapalooza when it's like wrestlers versus cartoons. Maybe we can have Pogo the Clown on for that, possibly. You never know. But yeah. Thank you again for the 100,000 billion insert shitty Dr. Evil what do you call it? impression here. But no, thank you, Pogo, for coming on. I really, really did appreciate it. In case you guys didn't figure that out by now, I am the essential John L. Crossfire. You were just caught in conversation. Shaka laka laka. Titty sprinkles. And, excuse me, madam, is your refrigerator running? Well, you better catch it. Aha!